It's funny because when Stanton and I first started doing these during Talk of Our Times, we never kind of knew what the sign on should be. Like when I get started, like when you're on radio, they say like KFI AM, or they say Jack FM, or they say WENS 97.9, Monique and the Man, Monique and the Man, Monique and the Man. And then it was just Monique, no man, which is kind of how it's been for a minute. And then when we did Talk of Our Times, I would just start by waving and saying like that because it was Saturday night and we had a very specific agenda. Now, by the way, we're going to play with these a little bit. We might do one in the evening. And I'd love your feedback. I'd love you guys to send messages and say like, hey, try 7:30 or try 8 o'clock. Or maybe we would even do like a 9 o'clock, which would be, 5 in the morning in England. By the way, I thought my phones were all silenced, but I was wrong. Okay, so to begin, right? I was extremely excited about today's show because Dan and I had a talk. We have producer Stanton, we have Dan the Man, and we have Tony the sound guy. Sound guy Tony's not been around for a minute. But Dan and I talked a lot about me and what I'm trying to do. And I reverse engineer things. I decide what I want to do and what I want to accomplish. And then I work my way back from that flag at the top of the hill. And when I started thinking about what I want to talk about, I think one of the reasons that I garner fans and that it's almost like a cult following, I always say I'm the Tom Waits of comedy, is because I speak a very specific kind of truth that not everyone can hear. And I'm not interested in everyone, to be perfectly candid. I'm interested in the right people because everything is an exchange of energy. And when I meet my fans, there's a thing that happens where I know you get me and love me, and you know that I get you and love you. And that's what this is about. It's nice that I get paid to live my destiny. It's amazing that sometimes there's really good food in the green room. A couple of months ago, I did a show in Fort Lauderdale. They had a full spread in little petit fours, these little square things covered in marzipan. But that's not why I do it. I do it for the energy. I do it for you. So I thought about what I want you to think about, what I want to share with you, and I reverse engineered it. And you remember the show The X-Files where they said, the truth is out there. Well, that's not true. Actually, it's about the biggest lie you've ever been told. The truth is inside of you, and you know it when you hear it, which is why you're drawn to me, because I have no agenda. I have no attachments. I'm not speaking to get people to throw money at me. I like it when they do it, and they most certainly will when they figure out what's really going on here. So let's begin, shall we? The first thing I want to talk about is what would be called the news or current events. But if I were going to title my own segment, I wouldn't call it current events. I would call it undercurrent events. Because what's interesting to me is the subtext, what's going on underneath it all. That news is really just a red herring that keeps you upset and focused, what I call information. It keeps you looking at the jangly car keys while the real stuff's happening. The stuff that you're not even thinking about, that you're not even aware of. So here's what I've been thinking about with this whole TikTok controversy, because a whole lot of people have called me, because from the beginning of TikTok, I kept saying, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not getting on TikTok. And then people said, well, you're trending on TikTok. Well, how can I be trending on TikTok? I'm not on TikTok. But if you go to hashtag Monique Marvez, you have nearly 1 million views. And those are just the people that have the decency to tag me. There's thousands of others, and I do mean that have used my material over the years and moved it onto all sorts of platforms and places without ever giving me credit. Months ago, there was a British girl who had 2.5 million views on Facebook, not even TikTok, lip syncing me. I believe her name was Amanda Beersley or something like that. I don't care. See, I didn't even commit it to memory, and I have an incredible memory. 2.5 million views, 26,000 shares. So I'm just going to put it out there. You want to hear the undercurrent? We're all on drugs. That's the undercurrent. You know what happened during COVID? We got more on drugs, and we are addicted. And I say we because there's a lot of stuff that jacks me up. And during COVID, I made a promise at the beginning of COVID that I was not going to gain weight, I was not going to get depressed, and I was not going to shop online. Guess what? I didn't. I got a little bit depressed, but fair enough. My brother passed. I gained a little bit of weight, and I got a little bit of stuff online because I couldn't go to a store. But when I make a decision, when I know something to be true, I stick to that decision and I do what I have to do. So here's what I'm going to throw out there. Take it as you will, but I research things. And it's funny because Dan says, you don't have to be off book. You can actually refer to notes. One of the things I loved about KFI was that, I had papers all around me and I never looked at them. I was proud of the fact that they were there if I needed them. Last Friday, I did a very important comedy show where I actually followed Mark Maron at the Comedy Store for a wonderful, wonderful charity. And I was appalled at how many comedians walked up on stage with index cards or their cell phone or papers they were shuffling through. You deserve better than that. If it's not important enough for me to think about it and commit it to memory, then why would I share it with you? So here it is. Clear your hands for the camera. I've been thinking about it all week. So number one, my sister-in-law is from Wuhan, China. She is 100% Chinese from China, not San Francisco, Wuhan. And we were hearing about COVID on Thanksgiving of 2019. There were already challenges. There were already cities being shut down and blockaded because in that country, they're not about like, oh, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. When they say you're going to do, you do. And that's how they roll over there. So we were hearing about major problems with an illness months before it came here. Okay? Right about that time, everybody kept talking about TikTok, 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 right before Christmas of 19. And in fact, I filmed the Ha Comedy Arts Festival the third weekend in February of 2020. And during that time, I remember people telling acts, you should get on TikTok. Your act would really translate well on TikTok. To other acts, not me. I'm clearly not a TikTok person. I don't, clearly, evidently I am because other people lip sync me, but that's not the point. The point is, TikTok, I thought, how can it be that you can use music and, because my friends were like, and you can set it to music and you can use whatever song you, copyright infringement maybe? Like, how did they get the rights? Like, who are they paying? Because I know that in order to use songs, bumper music, when I was on KFI, it's because we were owned by iHeart. And I had the right, I had the legal right. Someone was getting paid when I played my bumper music. The whole iHeart umbrella owns a library of his footsteps. Like, Prince barely tweeted and then he's like, this isn't for me. And I don't have, rest in peace. But the upshot is he would pull everything. He was like Disney. There were no songs on YouTube of Prince until he passed because he's not an idiot. So that being said, I remember when he passed, I tried to play a particular song off of YouTube and my boss called like, you're not allowed to play that. We don't own it and you can't play it off of So you understand that when I heard that people were making wacky videos and using other people's stuff, I was like, something ain't right. Something ain't right. So P.S., here's what's interesting to me. You have these very videos. So here's what happens. Just asking if anybody's considered this. Let's research right about the time COVID started, somebody ate a bat. Hot. Like, I believe that. I believe that like the lone gun theory. But somebody in China ate a bat that they got at a bad batch of bats at some Chinese farmer's market. Okay, so you have a bad bat. And then all of a sudden you have the rise of this other thing called TikTok, which doesn't pay anybody royalties. To be clear, when something is paid, played on American radio, or even Sirius XM, or even Pandora, there's a thing called Sound Exchange, which collects your royalties for you. You can check the digital rights of who's playing you and who's paying you. Guess what? TikTok is not on Sound Exchange. color me surprised. So at the exact same time that you have the rise of this very sticky, very facile, very digestible, I consider TikTok to be the vaping of social media. Like there were cigarettes, there was this, there was that. It's not even vaping. It's gummy bear edibles in bright pink. So you have this entity known as TikTok that doesn't pay royalties, that doesn't adhere to any standards. Oh, by the way, filled with malware. Filled. Like everybody goes, well, so is Facebook. I get it. Facebook didn't start out as a spy big brother. I'm absolutely certain that Mark Zuckerberg is in bed with the government so that he can do everything he wants to do and people turn a blind eye so he turns over information. Sure. But he didn't start out that way. He didn't build Big Brother. He built an app to figure out if chicks were hot or not. And then while he was building that, all these other things happened as time passed. He didn't sit down and say, how can I get the whole world stuck looking at dancing cats while we steal their data and we can turn their phones on and off and we can, blah, 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 blah. All the things that they can do. Which, by the way, do not adhere. Whatever you want to say about Zuckerberg, every once in a while, they make him sit and talk to Senate. Nobody's making the TikTok people talk to anybody. And I don't understand the controversy of, well, we can't let go of our TikTok. Like I literally heard somebody on the radio talking about the meltdown they would have if TikTok was shut down. Like, why? We have Facebook, we have Instagram. Why? Because it's filled with spyware. And it doesn't answer to any entity that cares about you at all, ever, at any time. Do I sound a little, excited? I am. Because everyone I know is addicted to TikTok. I sit in airports and I watch people staring. I see people pay the $8 for a short flight because they got to look at it. And that concerns me. So I find it very interesting because I'm that person who says, hey, this virus, somebody ate the bad bat right about the same time this thing was created. And all during COVID, everybody was distracted and delighted and doing their own TikToks and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, give it a little thought when you get a moment. Think about what TikTok's done for you. Maybe it's made you laugh. Maybe. I wouldn't know. I haven't looked at it. But people I respect and admire say, did you see that video that went viral? No. Don't ever ask me. And don't send me links. And don't send me private messages to other social media with links to TikTok. I'm not interested. I don't want to be any part of anything that's accountable to nothing. And by the way, fair is fair when they're like, well, we love TikTok. Well, guess what? You love Facebook too. And Chinese people that come to America love Facebook. Is there Facebook in China? No. So, okay, I'm the bad guy. TikTok is not doing you any favors, and you really need to think about it, because if you're distracted, you're impacted. I remember a million years ago when I sold makeup in Miami, Mitzi Siaga, the president of Jamaica's wife, used to fly to Miami and shop in different boutiques, and she shopped in the boutique where I worked. And her husband was a good man, and people liked him, and evidently he was a good president. And we had a long conversation because that's when people were talking about weed. This was 1983. I was a child. I was 21 years old. And she said that the reason that the government of Jamaica turned a blind eye that everybody smoked weed all the time was because then you can control people. If they're smoking weed, and I'm talking 1983 weed, not even the weed we got now. If they're smoking weed and they're listening to Bob Marley, you can do whatever you want to them. Boys and girls, I just want you to think about what you do. I'm not telling you not to look at TikTok. I'm not even telling you not to enjoy it. Guess what? I judge no one. Everyone has something that they're stuck to. Guilty pleasures, myself included. And I'm going to say it because this isn't supposed to be for children, but I'll be careful. I tell people if I ever found anything that I like better than Richard, you know the nickname for Richard, but we're trying to get sponsors. That I ever found anything I liked better than Richard and malted milk balls, I would do it. But I've never found anything that I like more. But you know what I'm really addicted to? I'm addicted to clarity. I'm addicted to seeing the world, just through the clearest eyes, because it is a beautiful place. And I'm a very, very happy person. And I think I'm happy because there's nothing to be afraid of. And I think that people medicate, and it's not about real drugs or real alcohol. We all, from time to time, look to be distracted. Do yourself a favor once in a while, put your phone down, pick up a book, go to a movie, go on Turner Classic Movies, as a matter of fact. I'm no better than anyone else. I'm addicted to certain things. I can watch It's a Wonderful Life once a week, but it's not stealing my data. Jimmy Stewart doesn't want my bank account. All right, so that's the end of that. We've had enough talk of Undercurrent. I just want you guys to do a little bit of math. TikTok, Bad Bat, simultaneously, more stuck to our screens. Second thing I want to talk about is words. And we're going to have a segment about words because I'm a stickler for semantics. And because words are powerful. That's why they call it spelling. Because what you say takes what you're thinking. I mean, it's biblical. In the Bible, it says, first there was the word. Because what happens is when you speak, you're affirming, you're confirming what your experience in your head is and what your beliefs are. And I'm not talking about religious beliefs. Like whenever you speak, you are affirming. That's why they tell you when you want to do something to say it out loud and hold yourself accountable, not just in your head. And especially the I am. I'm going to tell you a little story about that. I was involved with a guy years ago. And it was funny because people would say to me, Monique, do you have a boyfriend? And I'd say, I think so. I think he's alive. I was actually dating a guy that had a stage 4 cytoblastic leukemia. And I met him on a flight. I got bumped up to first class back in the day when just having an Amex would bump you up. Now it doesn't anymore. But I was in first class, and they moved a young man and put him next to me. He was very cute, and he had like a buzz cut. And I think they heard that he was traveling because he was very, very ill. So while we were sitting, this was back when you got fancy meals in first class. I can tell you exactly what it was. It was the spring of 2000. I'll never forget it. Because he said, would you like my fruit salad? I can't eat raw fruits and vegetables. I'm neutropenic. And I had never heard of the country of neutropene. So I said, what does that mean? And he said, I have low white, I have white blood cells, blah, 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 leukemia, blah, 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 blah. And I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, this poor dude, he's very sick. And even though I'm getting free fresh strawberries out of it, I still feel bad. And I was in a weird space in my life. I don't even know why I'm telling this story in its entirety, but you guys deserve to know it. So I'm not going to say his name because even though he's dead, out of respect. But anyway, so somehow it was a very long flight. It was from Miami to San Diego. And I ate the strawberries. We kept talking. He told me I was pretty. I was in a very bad way because I'd broken up with a man that I only refer to now as Dog of Satan. And he said to me, when we land in San Diego, maybe I can take you to dinner. And I said, I would like that. And he said, I really like you a lot. And I said, let me ask you something. Are you on drugs? And he said, only the ones my doctor gives me. I said, great. Are you married? He's like, no. I said, like, are you a switch hitter? Like, I'm not judging, but I can't have that energy in my life, back in the day, I said switch hitter. I guess now they'd say sexually fluid because I'm a magnet for people that aren't sure what they want. They want me, evidently. But anyway, he said, no, 100% like girls. I'm like, okay, great. When we land, we'll go out. And I'm not going to lie to you, but we started like kind of kissing in first class. And by kind of kissing, I mean, like I figured I'm depressed and this guy's dying. So we were totally swabbing tonsils like we were in the back of a movie theater. I was very young and heartbroken. And you could see the flight attendants were losing their noodle because everybody in first class was watching us like, get a room. We were in the air. We couldn't. But we landed and we went to dinner. And I'm telling you this story because I actually lost track of why I was telling you this story, but it'll come back in a minute. Because Dan is sitting across the room and he's laughing at the thought of me making out on a plane. It'll come back in a minute. But the upshot is, oh, I remember now. Now that I got over Dan laughing. He told me, he showed me his old driver's license and he looked like a different man. He was buff and he had big muscles and he had one of those mustaches like the kind of guys that go to titty bars. There's a certain kind of mustache. It's like bumblebee stripes. When you see that mustache, you know, this guy goes to strip clubs on Wednesday, you know, and he worked construction. And he told me that he kept saying to himself, I'm sick and tired of my life. The I am is so powerful. I am sick and tired of my life, because he was designed for better. He was a good person. He was a great person. And he was doing blow and roofing houses in San Diego and hanging out with his construction buddies and going to strip clubs. I knew it. Even though he looked like, when he showed me the driver's license, I knew who he was. I felt it energetically. And he told me that he kept saying, I am sick and tired, until he fell off the roof of a house. January 31st, 1999, he fell off the roof of a house. And they took him to urgent care. And he didn't suffer any injuries from the fall, oddly enough. Probably because he had no red blood cells. So he just kind of passed out. And he landed in a heap. And they did his blood work. And other than finding probably massive amounts of cocaine in his system, they said, you have severe cytoblastic leukemia. You're a dead man. You're a dead man. They sent him straight to the hospital from the urgent care. And basically at the hospital, they said, get your affairs in order. You're a dead man walking. And I met him during the time when he was doing clinical trials for a Novartis drug. And I won't bore you with the whole story, but he confirmed for me what I know to be true, that your thoughts will govern your life. And that if you are constantly pessimistic, if you constantly go against your internal compass, if you constantly speak against yourself, you're speaking against yourself. Now, not every single thing you say has the same amount of power, but it was very interesting how he understood once we started sort of unraveling. And he lived for 1 year, because they told him if you live for a year, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to do better. You know, maybe you won't live to be an old man, but you might have 5 years in the queue, whatever. During that time, he just started telling me truth because he was dying. He had nothing to hide. He said that he always feared that his youngest child wasn't his. Guess what? When it came time to do tests to see, and this was before 23, Me 23 or whatever it's called, when they were going to test his 3 children to see if any of them were a match for a bone marrow transplant, his ex-wife insisted that they not test the youngest child because she said, no, she's too young and it'll scare her and there's no need for that. Well, by the way, we knew what we knew and he knew what he knew. And he lived for 364 days. And he died the week between Christmas and New Year's of 2000. And during the time that we drove around, because I took him on the road with me, and I could look him right in the eye and know by looking in his face, his lips would go a certain kind of white. And I'd say, you're low. We got to get you to the hospital. You're a quart low, like a vampire. And then they'd put blood in him. And then I'd throw him back in the car and drive him to another gig. Because he said, I just want to feel normal and I just want to have fun. And we spent 6 or 8 months just driving around the country together. And then I dropped him off at UCLA. Election night, 2000. I dropped him off. I had a show at the Comedy Store, and everybody was talking about how the election was going to be a problem. And we know what happened. I don't have to bring it back. But what I want to tell you is that words are incredibly powerful. Be very careful what you say. And I use them. I wanted to bring back jive turkey, but nobody was biting. I just really want to bring back jive turkey, and at some point I will. But there's an energy afoot, and it's a good energy. Because everything is a yin and a yang, and the universe seeks balance. And as much as people are stuck to TikTok and all of that other stuff that people talk about, let's talk about what people aren't talking about, which is this new energy. The kids, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids are very, very different than I was at 17 and 18 and 19. And it's exciting to me. And I believe with all my heart, they're going to save us. Everybody over 25, be grateful to the kids because they understand something that I understand. I think I'm the world's oldest child in some ways. And when I say child, it's because that's what I call them. I go, hey, child, or come on, kid. I call everybody under 40 kid that's in my world. I understand that there is no them there. When people say to me, Monique, you always take the high road. That's because I understand there's only one road. The idea of multiple roads is an illusion. There's one road. And if you don't do the thing you need to do to get further down the road to Sartori, you're just going to go over that same piece of pavement over and over and over, like Groundhog's Day. You're going to keep breaking up with the same kind of person. You're going to keep dating the same kind of person. I married the same man with 3 different heads. I mean, they were different ages. They were different backgrounds. They were very different people in some ways. And in some ways, they were very much the same. So there is only one road. There's only one truth. You know, I did that show on Friday and I met these young ladies and they spoke to me with a lot of love about the way I present. And they were young girls. One of them was named Katie. And she was amazing. And she said, you know, the whole time you were talking, I kept looking at my sister saying, she's one of us. She's one of us. Well, one of us means somebody who doesn't put spin. Because my generation and the generation older than me, and even some of the older millennials, they feel like the truth is subjective. We have words like compartmentalized ethics. Like, I act like this at work, but I'm really credible. Integrity when it comes to my children. But when it comes to, you know, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. You can't push down water. Think about water in a swimming pool, right? You can't push down half the water and then the other water stays where it is. Well, to continue the analogy, we are made of water. We are made of water. Dr. Emoto talks about that, how he would literally, you know, put water under, you know, put different things under microscopes, snowflakes, plants, based on how they were spoken to or the energy around them. Or even if they had a nasty, mean word written on the vase that the plant was in. Messages from water, Dr. Emoto. It's very important. Well, we're made of water. So you can't tamp down half of yourself and go, I'm going to cut a few corners at work. You know, I'm going to, maybe I'll flirt with a girl at happy hour. You know, I'm not saying I haven't done all of these things. I absolutely have done all of them. Check, 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 check. But as I get older and I'm surrounded by a lot of young people, I always tell them, I wish I would have had a me when I was a you. And I talk about things that matter. So here's the word, interascension. The word means, and I made it up, but it's going to catch on. I couldn't sell jive turkey, but I can sell interascension because when I talk to people that are in it to win it, that really get it, when I tell them The Matrix was a documentary and they light up and go, yeah, we rise best when we take other people into account, when we take them with us, when we don't leave them behind. And part of that means not judging them. I don't judge my aunt for calling me and telling me, I'm going to go now because I'm watching some stuff on TikTok and it makes me really happy. I didn't say, oh my God, get off of TikTok. I didn't do that. I said, enjoy. You can't help people while you're judging them. You can't lift people when you're not respecting them. Interascension is about really embracing the people around you and doing your level best to be honest with them and loving with them and truthful with yourself. Because if The Matrix was a documentary, they don't exist. There is no spoon. They're in your life to make you better. So figure out how. Years ago, I wrote this whole template of things that I've learned that are what I call soul sure. Like I'm sure in my soul that it's truth. And I know, like I know my name, like I wrote this whole list of things. And one of them is nobody, saves or changes anyone. Just sometimes you're there at the right time to witness somebody's, decision, somebody's rise. Be a cheerleader. Nobody saves anyone. It's an illusion. They don't exist. They're there to make you better. One of the things that I know to be a fact, everything is an answer to a prayer. So you have to reverse engineer what you might have prayed for. Was it strength? Was it courage? Was it wisdom? Was it the ability to be a linear communicator? Interascension. I speak directly to you. You speak directly to me. Our energy's good. We lift each other. All right. So segment number 2, the word. Segment number 1, undercurrent. All right. Undercurrent events. I'm doing this so you guys can find the parts you like easily. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about me. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about you. Then we're going to stick the landing. What do you say? Okay. A little bit about me. I'm going to tell you why I do this. Because since I was very little, I had an understanding of things that were very different than most people. I could lie to you, but what's the point? What I'm really hoping is that some of you will say, I was like that too. Because if I don't tell you what's going on in my head and communicate in a very linear fashion, like my friends, they'll say something kind of sarcastic and I'll just stare at them. And they'll say, don't you get it? Isn't it funny? And I'll go, I don't do sarcasm. And then they go, what do you mean you don't do sarcasm? I don't do sarcasm. I don't do sarcasm. Number 1, sarcasm is a defense mechanism and it's the lowest form of humor. Sometimes it is funny, but so's people getting hit in the balls. Hilarious. But after a while, let's be honest, wasn't that America's Funniest Home Videos? Chuck gets hit in the nuts. That was the whole show. Chuck missed the trampoline and landed on the spring. Chuck fell off his bike. Yeah, it's funny. But can we move beyond it? Or can we enjoy it very judiciously, like a spice? You don't have. It's not a meal. It's just getting hit in the nuts is a spice. Sarcasm is a spice. But I don't do sarcasm because it's a defense mechanism. If you want me to know something, look me in the eye and say it to me. Don't be like, no, I don't do that. I'm very direct. So I'm going to tell you how I believe myself to be different in the hopes that you guys will be me too. Because that's what I'm looking for. Good me too, not me too. Not hashtag I've been groped me too, but I'm just like you me too. All right. So when I was a child, I remember it like it was 1969 going into 70. I was 7 years old. I have a whole chapter in my book called The 7-Up Theory that basically says that everything we do from the age of 7 and up is to deal with or heal a wound that we incurred from the age of 7 and down. It's a catchy title. I've talked about it many, many, many times because it bears repeating and it bears understanding. Just like when you're at a concert and you hear your favorite song, the 7-Up Theory is one of my favorite songs as an artist. One of my best things I ever came up with. So at the age of 7, my dad called me into my parents' bedroom. And by the way, I still own the chair he was sitting in. It's in my patio right now. It was like that mid-century. I've had it recovered and I painted it black, but it's on my balcony, the actual chair my dad was sitting in. And he was a big man, and I was standing between his legs, and he put his hands on my shoulders, and I guess to stabilize me or whatever. And he said, this has nothing to do with you. Which, as a 7-year-old kid, you go, what did I do? Never start with, don't worry. People will immediately worry. He said, this has nothing to do with you. And I will visit you every chance I get. And it's going to be okay. And then he went on to tell me, and I kind of tuned out a little bit, that he and my mother were separating, that he was going to move out, and that things were going to change dramatically during the Christmas holiday. And interestingly enough, being intuitive, being sensitive, being connected, understanding energy before I understood the words, of how to explain what I was feeling, I understood that my dad had been very unhappy for a very long time. I felt like I was the steward of his emotions. And somehow, something inside of me, rather than start to cry like a selfish child of, oh my God, are you kidding me? You're leaving me alone with the one that doesn't understand me. I looked him right in the face. Now, sidebar. I'll tell you what I said in a second. When people would come up to my father in a comedy club and say, you know, she's hilarious, or she's so funny, or you should be so proud of her, my dad would look them dead in the eye and go, Monique was a fully formed demigod by the age of 7. Well, this is the moment when he started to believe that. So I looked him in the face at 7 years old, completely dry-eyed. And I said, will you be happier if you don't live here? And he said, I believe so, sweetheart. I said, good, then I'll help you move. And he had an MG convertible, and it was in our carport, and the top was down because it was in the carport. And I remember opening my parents' closet doors because it slid, and they were like the louvered ones. I can picture myself sliding the closet door and gathering up his shoes and walking out into the carport and dumping his shoes and his belongings into the back of his MG. And he walked out with a handful of suits. And when he saw me so diligently, because even back then I cared about organization, kind of putting his shoes in some sort of order after I dropped them in a pile, he sat in the grass. I'll never forget it. He started crying in that way, like a bracket on a shelf had broken. Like it just, the shelf gave way and everything slid off in his head. And he sat in the grass with his suits all around him, just sobbing. And now, all these years later, at 60, I realize that the generosity of my personality, of my love for him, superseded my selfish desire for him not to leave me alone with my mother. And that impressed and touched him deeply. And I spent my life, see, that's my drug. That's why I do comedy. That's why I do this show. When you feel that level of admiration, that level of respect, that level of love from somebody who's the sunshine in your sky, there's no drug. I mean, I've never done heroin or anything like that, but I've had some pretty good Richard, and I like malted milk balls. I have never, ever felt that again. And I chase that dragon. I chase that dragon because that is my drug. That is my payback. Admiration and a genuine love, not because I was his child, but because I was a good child. All right, so that's about me. Now, let's talk about you. This is the you segment. I'm inviting you with everything in my being, as I've been very, very honest with you about being on drugs, what we chase. We all chase something, and it's way better to chase than to run from. It looks the same, but intention is everything. I'm asking you, don't be afraid and run from things. Focus on what you want and run towards them. Think about that for a minute, please, because I feel like if people felt safer in their own knowingness, in your own understanding of yourself and the way your own mind works. My father used to say, Monique, trust the veracity of your own mind. He said, you'll get over the mistakes you made on your own. Like if you did something and you screwed up, then you learn something. You get over it. He said, the ones you don't get over are the ones when you knew better. You ignored a red flag. You got talked into it. You wanted to be liked. You didn't want to go against the crowd. He embedded that in me, and I've been going against the crowd most of my life. Because when that person who's the sun in your sky says, trust the veracity of your own mind. If you know something to be right, do it. Even if you're going against me. I will forgive you. I'll forgive you. But you won't forgive yourself if you don't do it. And I'm saying this to you because I think in this world we live in, I don't even want to say post-COVID anymore because I'm sick of hearing about it. Just like I don't want to talk about politics. That's not why you came here. That's not why you're drawn to me. I want to talk about big things, fun things, exciting things, where we're running to, not what we're running from. I'm not here to distract you. I'm not. I'm here to impact you in a good way. I'm here to crash into you, like Dave Matthews says. Crash into me. I'm here to put just the right spin on your cue ball so your 8-ball goes right in the right pocket and you win. That's what I'm here to do. That's what this show is going to be about. I gave it a lot of thought. Dan and I have been talking a lot about this because that's what's inside of me. That's what excites me. That's my drug. I'm not an altruistic person. People tell me all the time I'm nice or I'm good. I'm not. I'm as big a junkie as anybody else on the planet. I just know the safe drug. The safe drug is love. It's the one we all really, really, really want. Everything else is just, kind of marking time. And right now, I don't have any children. I don't have a spouse. I have a tremendous dog. She really, really loves me. My mom loves me, and she's starting to like me, and that's amazing. That's my drug. That's what I'm dealing. That's what I want to get you hooked on. I want to get you hooked on you. I want to get you hooked on all the best parts of you. I want you to have everything you ever wanted. And really, the only doorway to that, number one, nobody gets to great alone. You go through that doorway with your friends, with community, with other people. So I want you to get through the doorway of great with your people. And I want to be one of your people. And when you look at yourself, I don't want you to look at all the things that you think are wrong with you, because nothing is wrong. Everything's an answer to a prayer. As I sit here at 60 years old with clear skin and straight teeth and a pretty nice figure, I'm here to tell you, I have pictures to prove it. This was not how I was. But Rumi, the 12th century Sufi poet, says, look to the bandaged place. That's where the light comes in. Now, if I wasn't a fat child and a chubby adolescent and a very chubby adult most of my life, I wouldn't know that celery has -4 calories. I know that because I've been on a diet of some sort or another for most of my life, until I went to hypnotherapy and became my own friend and understood that food was one of my drugs, and understood that it didn't make me feel any better when I ate. I mean, it did temporarily, and I still like cake, and especially when it has a lot of icing, but it's a special occasion. It's not there to pick me up when I'm not feeling good about the world. It's quite the opposite. I'm already feeling good, so a piece of cake is okay. I'm not going to eat the whole thing. I'm going to eat the part that's really good and makes me happy. Please don't beat yourself up about whatever drugs you're on, and I'm not even telling you to get off of TikTok or anything else. I'm just telling you, everybody throws this word mindful around. Be mindful about what's good about yourself, okay? And be careful with your words, because you're casting a spell on yourself. There's really no one else you need to talk to. There is no spoon. When you talk out loud, when you say it, you're telling yourself. And by the way, this is all backed by science. Logs into Princes by Richard Bandler. And it's all about auto-neuro-linguistic programming. That's why monks chant. That's why when you start TM, they give you a word. You have to pay for it, but evidently it's a very good word. And I got nothing against TM because it gave us David Lynch, and who doesn't love David Lynch? All right, so we had Undercurrent events. Go back and listen. I think you're going to very much enjoy what I was talking about. We had the word, interascension. We had me, the story of what goes on in my head and what I'm addicted to. We had you. I don't know what goes on in your head, but feel free to share with me. I'd really like to know. And now I'm going to stick the landing. And by sticking the landing, I mean tonight's the first night of Passover, and whatever that means. By the way, my Hebrew name is Bathsheba, and that's a story for another day. I converted for a husband. And people, when I was in Israel, kept saying, are you still Jewish? And I'm like, you tell me, does God take it back? I mean, I don't eat bacon. I never pay retail. So, I'm going to say yeah. But that being said, am I still anything? Am I still Catholic? Am I still Latina? Am I still a female? It all goes into the soup. It all goes into you, every ingredient of everything that you came in contact with. I did a talk years ago. There was a group called Stick the Landing. The Live Well Project brought girls that were on the margin, whether they were homeless in a shelter. There's a Monarch School in San Diego, which is the only school in the country that actually takes children with no permanent address. And the Live Well Project took girls from 12 to 17 that, lived in, let's just say, sketchy situations or were taken out of sketchy situations. And my friend Michelle headed it up. And I was the moderator once a year for the Live Well Project. And we did it for 4 years. And the girls would wait for me. Actually, I don't want to get emotional, but for every year I'd come up with sort of a curriculum for the day that tied it all together. And the first one was Hello, Gorgeous, before gorgeous was a thing. Now, gorgeous is not about physical beauty. It's about an attitude, and it actually comes from the word garganta, from throat, because it has to do with your word and the way you appear. Remember when people wore those big ruffs during the medieval times? But gorgeous, if you look it up, has nothing to do with the juxtaposition of the features on your face. It has everything to do with an attitude, your word, the way you move through the world. So the first one was Hello, Gorgeous. And the last one was I Matter. As I said, we have eyes, everything. We have iPad, we have, iPhone. I matter because you are matter. You are matter. Human beings can never be destroyed because you're made up, you're a carbon-based life form. And matter can never be destroyed. That's why I always say love should be on the elemental table, because it just changes. If somebody says, I used to love him and now I hate him, well, that's true, because the flip side of love is hate. If you really, really are over someone, then it's apathy. It's nothing. If you hate someone, technically, you're still engaged. They mattered. It's matter. So when I would do these, I would put a lot into them, and I would spend all day in between activities. They got Zumba, they got makeovers, they got free yoga mats. People contributed, and I waited all year because it really made me feel good. Remember, my drug of choice, to have these girls admire me and respect me and spend all day, kind of jockeying to be closer when I was on the mic. And at the end of the day, the first year, a couple of girls asked if they could hug me, and I said yes. And then the second year, more girls hugged me. And by the end of it, the last 2 years, I would stand there and every single girl would hug me before she got on the bus. You want to talk about a charge? You want to talk about a drug? You want to talk about being high? Have 150 or 200 girls come in contact with you, because we're matter, and when elements touch each other, they're never the same. The time that we spend, whatever time you allot me to be in your life, we will change each other because we're matter, and you matter to me. So the show's going to change. It's going to grow. It's not always going to be in front of this beautiful screen. It's not always going to be in the afternoon. But I want you to know, whatever it does and wherever it goes, you are my drug. Your love, your attention, your understanding of me. I've never found anything better. I told people at a big thing in New York called NYWIFT. It was New York Women in Film and Television. They invited me to come up and speak. And I was so excited because I met an actress whose first name is Deidre, and forgive me for not having her last name in front of me, who was on The Wire. She was on the show The Wire, and actually she played the girlfriend of the African-American actor who died recently, whose name also escapes me, but he was amazing and smoking hot. Anyway, so I met her, and they invited me to speak, and I talked about how, I didn't say it this way because I wasn't as tuned into it, but I said, deep down inside, we all conjure what it is we really, really need and really, really want. So look around you. Whatever's going on in your life is an answer to a prayer. And you have to figure out what that amazing challenge is or what the amazing benefit is. And I told her, I said that I felt that I was born to fix things, to help people. I was a filler of holes. I don't fight it. If that's what you do, then you date people that are Swiss cheese until you change your perspective and what it is you're supposed to do. There was a time I dated very, broken winged birds. I don't do that anymore because I have something else to do now. I don't judge myself for doing that when I did it. But I said that when I was younger, I was just that person who would step in and fix, who would step in and do, who would just step in. And I said, I really wanted to feel the feeling of people feeling happiness just because I showed up before I did a single thing. And I created it. It's called an audience. Before I even take the mic out of the stand and start talking, I feel it. They're happy I'm there. They're ready for what's next. So am I. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying there's never been a better time to be alive. I appreciate you, and I look forward to us coming together again next week. Thank you. Oh, Dan's doing this signal. I don't know what it means. Oh, share the content. Yes.
Share the knowledge.
MoniqueMarvez.com. He's doing gestures and making me laugh. All right, look. Do me a favor. If you like what you saw, tell your friends. I'm not good at this. But you guys, you get the picture. Thank you.